To believe your own thought. To believe that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all men. That is genius. Speak your latent conviction, and it shall be the universal sense. For the inmost in due time becomes the outmost, and our first thought is rendered back to us by the trumpets of the last judgment. Familiar as the voice of the mind is to each, the highest merit we ascribe to Moses, Plato, and Milton is that they set at naught books and traditions and spoke not what men, but what they thought. A man should learn to detect and watch that gleam of light which flashes across his mind from within, more than the luster of the firmament of bards and sages, yet he dismisses without notice his thought because it is his. In every work of genius, we recognize our own rejected thoughts. They come back to us with a certain alienated majesty. Great works of art have no more affecting lesson for us than this. They teach us to abide by our spontaneous impression with good-humored inflexibility than most when the whole cry of voices is on the other side, else tomorrow a stranger will say with masterly good sense precisely what we have thought and felt all the time, and we shall be forced to take with shame our own opinion from another. There is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide, that he must take himself for better, for worse, as his portion. That though the wide universe is full of good, no kernel of nourishing corn can come to him, but through his toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given to him to till. Society everywhere is in conspiracy against the manhood of every one of its members. Society is a joint stock company in which the members agree for the better securing of his bread to each shareholder to surrender the liberty and culture of the eater. The virtue in most request is conformity, self-reliance is its aversion, and loves not realities and creators, but names and customs. Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist. He who would gather immortal palms must not be hindered by the name of goodness, but must explore if it be goodness. Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind, of solitude of yourself, and you shall have the suffrage of the world. I remember an answer which, when quite young, I was prompted to make to a valued advisor who was wont to importune me with the dear old doctrines of the church. On my saying, what have I to do with the sacredness of traditions if I live firmly from within? My friend suggested, but these impulses may be from below, not from above. I replied, they do not seem to me to be such, but if I am the devil's child, I will live then from the devil. No law can be sacred to me, but that of my nature. Good and bad are but names very readily transferable to that or this. The only right is what is after my constitution. The only wrong, what is against it. A man is to carry himself in the presence of all opposition, as if everything were titulant and ephemeral. But he, I am ashamed to think how easily he capitulates to badges and names, to large societies and dead institutions. Every decent and well-spoken individual affects and sways me more than is right. I ought to go upright and vital, and speak the rude truth in all ways. If malice and vanity wear the coat of philanthropy, shall that pass? If an angry bigot assumes this bountiful cause of abolition, and comes to me with his last news from Barbados, why should I not say to him, go love thy infant! Love thy woodchopper, be good-natured and modest. Have that grace, and never varnish your heart and chart of a position with this incredible tenderness for black folk 1,000 miles off. The moment I feel the slander of nature upon my spirit and am bent to the quick, I shrink from these men as from a blight. Their friendship demands from my conformity to their ways of thinking and living, and their dislike is the punishment of my nonconformity. My life is not an apology, but a life. It is for itself, and not for a spectacle. I much prefer that it should be of a lower strain, so it be genuine and equal, than that it should be glittering and unsteady. I wish it to be sound and sweet, and not to need diet and bleeding. I ask primary evidence that you are a man, and refuse this appeal from the man to his actions. I know that for myself it makes no difference whether I do or forbear those actions which are reckoned excellent. I cannot consent to pity or a privilege where I am intrinsic right. Few and mean as my gifts may be, I actually am, and do not need from my own assurance or the assurance of my fellows any secondary testimony. What I must do is all that concerns me, not what the people think. This rule, equally arduous in actual and intellectual life, may serve for the whole distinction between greatness and meanness. It is the harder, because you will always find those who think they know what is your duty better than you know it. It is easy in the world to live after the world's opinion. It is easy in solitude to live after our own. But the great man is he who in the midst of the crowd keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude. The objection to conforming to usages that have become dead to you is, it scatters your thoughts. It loses your time and blurs the impression of your character. If you maintain a dead church, contribute to a dead Bible society, vote with a great party either for the government or against it, spread your table like base housekeepers, under all these screens I have difficulty to detect the precise man you are. And of course so much force is withdrawn from your proper life. But do your work, and I shall know you. Do your work, and you shall reinforce yourself. A man must consider what a blind man's buff is this game of conformity. If I know your sect, I anticipate your argument. I hear a preacher announce what is text and topic, the expediency of one of the institutions of his church. Do I not know beforehand that not possibly can he say a new and spontaneous word? Do I not know that with all this ostentation of examining the grounds of the institution, he will do no such thing? Do I not know that he has pledged to himself not to look but at one side, the permitted side, not as a man, but as a parish minister? He is a retained attorney, and these heirs of the bench are the emptiest affectation. Young men have been ruined by early adherence to a political party, by the absolute giving up of their liberty and culture. In this country, the party of conservatism is the party of the past, the party of memory, whilst the party of innovation is the party of the future. These are the two halves of the world, of which the one is wise, and the other is foolish. The foolish party is the party of the future. Why? Because the wise party contents itself with the present, minus its existing arrangements. The foolish party rushes headlong on the future and thinks all that is past contemptible. Society never advances. It recedes as fast on one side as it gains on the other. It undergoes continual changes. It is barbarous. It is civilized. It is Christianized. It is rich. It is scientific. But this change is not alienation. For everything that is given, something is taken. The society acquires new arts and loses old instincts. The civilized man has built the coach but has lost the use of his feet. He is supported on crutches but lacks so much support of muscle. He has a fine Geneva watch, but he fails of the skill to tell the hour by the sun. A Greenwich nautical almanac he has, and so being sure of the information when he wants it, the man in the street does not know a star in the sky. The soul raised over passion beholds identity and eternal causation. Perceive the self-existence of truth and right, and calls itself with knowing that all things go well. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and fars. With consistency, a great soul has simply nothing to do. He may as well concern himself with the shadow on the wall. Out upon your guarded lips, sew them up with packed thread. Do else if you would be a man. Speak what you think today in words as hard as cannonballs. And tomorrow, speak what tomorrow thinks in hard words again. Though it contradict everything you said today. So you shall be sure to be misunderstood. Is it so bad then to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates and Jesus and Luther and Copernicus and Galileo and Newton and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh to be great is to be misunderstood. I suppose no man can violate his nature. All the sallies of his will are rounded in by the law of his being. As the inequalities of Bombies and Himalaya are insignificant in the curve of the spear. Nor does it matter how you gauge and triumph. A character is like the poetry where Alexandrian stanza. Read it forward, backward, or across, it still spells the same thing. In this pleasing, contrite wood life which God allows me, let me record day by day my honest thought without prospect or retrospect. I cannot doubt it will be found symmetrical, though I mean it not and see it not. My book should smell of pines and resound with the hum of insects. The swallow over my window should interweave that thread or straw he carries in his bill into my web also. I ask not for the great, the remote, the romantic. What is doing in Italy or Aradium? What is Greek art or Provençal minstrelsy? I embrace the calm and I explore and set the feet of the familiar alone. Give me insight into day, and you may have the antique and future worlds. What would we really know the meaning of? What would we really know the meaning of? The meal in the firkin, the milk in the pan, the ballad in the street, the news of the vocal glance of the eye, the form and the gait of the body. Show me the ultimate reason of these matters. Show me the sublime presence of the highest spiritual force lurking as always it does work in these suburbs and extremities of nature. Let me see every trifle bristling with the polarity that ranges it instantly on an eternal law. And the shot, the plow, and the legend reveal the museum of the gods. I know that if you love me, you will not care for my mistakes. I love you for your independence, your severity, your true and esteem of impediments. And if you cannot bear my errors, you will be all the kinder to me for my perfections. There is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that annotation is suicide. And he must take himself for better, for worse, as his portion. That though the wide universe is full of good, no kernel of nourishing corn can come in there. But through this toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given to him to till the voyage of the best ship is a zigzag line of 100 tacks.